We randomly picked 5 songs from our own playlists, and there would be 20 different suggestions for movement we would do to those songs, rotating through every 5 days. One song each, one prompt each. So that equaled 100 days. I did about 3.5 of those cycles during my cancer treatment.
Wow.
And not only did it make my movement really good, it helped me to start looking at, part of that exercise was to look at myself in the video and pick out 3 positive things about myself. And 2 things that I would want to shift differently. It was a wording too.
Welcome to Stress Free SOULutions with Sarah. I'm your host, Sarah Elise, a stress management and fitness coach, advocating the world to trust their gut more often. I discuss various ways to manage stress and share personal stories of guest experts who have gone through the same stressors as all of you at home. Hey there, super moms of the universe. Let's play a game called hide and seek. No, not with your kids or that mysteriously vanishing left sock. It's time to seek out you in the everyday hide and seek of life. Introducing Mastering the Soul System, a 12-week journey to reclaim your time and energy. This course is your gateway to finding balance, energy, and joy in every aspect of your bustling life. Picture this, 12 weeks where the words mom and mayhem don't always go together. Rediscover yourself with every breath in our Soulful Mind Weeks. Sing out loud in the shower or car, off-key is absolutely fine, and dance during our Soulful Body sessions, and embrace the quiet whispers of your heart in our Soulful Spirit adventures. It's about time your spirit got a front row seat, don't you think? Join us on this journey. Embrace the harmony between being a dedicated mom and your personal aspirations. Mastering the soul system, because darling, in the noise, find your silence. And maybe, just maybe, a bit of that elusive thing called me time. You deserve to thrive, not just survive. So come on, slide into our world at www.livewellenhanceyou.com/soul system. Your journey back to you starts now. Jenny C. Cohen is a breast cancer survivor and producer of the Dance to Heal program and podcast. She has a master's degree in occupational therapy, as well as certifications in Sharkey workouts. She's a master instructor, Datura style certified teacher, yoga body yoga instructor, breath coach, art therapy certification, and triple trauma aware NLP certified Avalon empowerment coach. I'm so blessed to have her here today. She was also born in Taiwan and grown in the US of A. Jenny is a best-selling author, actor, voiceover artist, comedian, and also known as Aaliyah Jenny, an award-winning performer. I'm seriously, like I said this just moments ago, blessed. She came into my life through a program that we both were looking to build our brands, and she makes such an impact, not only in this universe, but on my heart. You're an amazing person. And Jenny, thank you for coming in and being an inspiration that I know you'll be for the audience as well as me. So thank you for being here today.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really honored. So honored to be here today.
Oh my gosh, I'm really excited for this conversation because we both have connected on many different levels, being mamas, being part of the Jewish community, and also just understanding that healing comes from within and it takes a while to get there. And we might not even know the signs sometimes because we're working our tails off to provide, because we're providers. Everyone has always said that men are providers, but you haven't met Jenny Cohen at all. If you haven't if you haven't met someone like Jenny Cohen, you're going to meet someone today like her. So thank you, Jenny. I'm really excited. If you can't.
It's okay. I love you.
So, with all that in mind, guys, today we're going to talk about some things that we're scared to talk about as women. And from those men that listen to my podcast, we're going to get deep. We're going to talk about and get uncomfortable. So, please stay with us as we do so. Jenny, I said at the very beginning, you're a breast cancer survivor. And I would love to hear from you because you've healed, you've survived, and survive is also an okay word to use versus heal because I think like sometimes we just focus on that part. But as a survivor, what is something that you have learned about yourself?
I have learned a lot of things. The first thing that pops up into my mind with this question, Sarah, is that what brought me back into the healing voyage wasn't my breast cancer, actually. Now, my getting breast cancer caused my family to go into distress because
Mm,
talk about this, and I really want your audience to understand that we understand that most of the time there's one parent, usually the mother, right? Sometimes the father too, who's the central originating thing that everything radiates off of, right?
mhm,
And it took me getting breast cancer for the pieces to start falling apart and for really the true cracks to appear. And I say this directly in relation to when I got breast cancer. I still had dance, and dance, instead of being a way for me to commune with God and the universe and feel safe in my body, it became an escape. Because the treatment of cancer, few people talk about it, with being a little bit more overt. It's really terrible. No one tells you about it. It's similar to when you get an operation and the doctor goes, "Oh, so your healing process is 6 weeks," and they cursorily go over your precautions and they don't bring up the reality of the first chemo, we're going to pump you so full of drugs, you're not going to feel it. When it wears off, please make sure you're near a bathroom and don't get any thoughts about exercising because you're going to think you feel good because of the drugs we give you. And then your body will start to fall apart because we're pumping you so full of poisons to try and kill every single microscopic piece of cancer in your body, including in your brain. We're
mm,
going to inundate you with poisons in hopes of getting it. And there will be side effects. You'll have chemo rages, chemo damage, brain damage. You'll have neuropathies throughout your peripheries. People do wear the cold caps and the hand mittens and the cold things to decrease circulation if your doctor wants to provide that, has an extra service. My doctors never told me about it. So I ended up with severe neuropathies. It's a nice word for nerve damage in your hands and feet, meaning to this day, I could hold a mug of coffee. If I'm not focused on it, I won't understand that my grip is loosened and the mug will fall out.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, and what happens is in the recovery process, your nerves sometimes will come back and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they get crosswired. So I am always in pain in my feet. They're either painful or numb or some combination of it. And as a dancer, it's quite devastating to always be in pain and in learning to try and turn that pathway off through other modalities. So
Mm,
for me, the getting the cancer part, I had a lot of escape. So I danced a lot to escape Sarah. And in the escaping, my children, they're 14. I have fraternal twins through in vitro. They started to fall apart, and all the traumas from their childhood that I wasn't aware of. They're homeschooled. How did they have traumas? They did. We can talk about that later in this interview.
yeah.
Their safety nets fell, and it wasn't only until my one of my children went into severe distress. Trigger warning for your audience: there was a lot of self-harm, suicidal ideation. That kind of woke me up. And I still didn't wake up until they had a severe relapse where they really should have gone to the hospital, Sarah, under lockdown. And I
Mm,
knew their personality could not withstand it. So I made the conscious choice to listen to God when God grabbed me by the shoulder and went, "You're going to lose this miracle I gave you if you don't stop running away." And that began this whole process.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you found out, I mean, first off, giving credit to your kids for being able to come. I
Thank
mean,
goodness. Yeah.
that's huge. That also says a lot about your connection with your kiddos because I have had a lot of clients over the years that wasn't the case for them and have lost their children. And not necessarily the connection part, but just unaware due to social media and bullying and things that were going on around that she and he had no idea. So, how were you able to move through that because you had, I mean, let's be real, like you're probably tired all the time, you're feeling sick. How were you able to move through that?
During the actual cancer treatment, I shut down. Most of us, when we're going through traumatic events, you're a new mom, right? And I remember when my babies were really young, the shock and awe of being a parent, having birth baby, and my body's in recovery. And I was like, what do I do? How do I keep them alive? And I will be honest, I had some form of postpartum. I just never realized it. And I'm just by the grace of God, we were able to afford help that first year because I was a danger to myself and my babies. And luckily we had Sunshine. Sunshine was a woman from Jamaica. And she came in Monday through Fridays for the 12 hours when my husband was at work. She kept me safe at home. So that was a privilege that isn't often afforded to people. In
Mm.
relation to that, when I was going through cancer treatment, the 16 cycles of chemo, the surgery, the 35 sessions of radiation, the additional year of another type of chemo, I had to disassociate through dance. And dance was one of the few times I felt safe in my body. And I was doing what they call 100-day improv challenges. Another woman who's also a Datura style certified instructor, she started a 100-day thing where we randomly picked 5 songs from our own playlists, and there would be 20 different suggestions for movement we would do to those songs, rotating through every 5 days. One song each, one prompt each. So that equaled 100 days. I did about 3.5 of those cycles during my cancer treatment.
Wow.
And not only did it make my movement really good, it helped me to start looking at, part of that exercise was to look at myself in the video and pick out 3 positive things about myself
Mm.
and 2 things that I would want to shift differently. It was a wording too. And that was the beginning of my beginning to be more loving. You know, the Care Bear stare, the Care Bears and how they would stare at
Yeah.
you. Love. That is part of my training as a Datura teacher, or the producer of it, Rachel Bryce, would always say to us, you want to learn to give someone the Care Bear stare because you want to receive it. And that was the beginning of me directing that towards myself, which was different. Very few teachers at that time were having us do that. And then you think back over, oh, wait a minute. Why don't I want to look at myself? Oh, because I have a lot of looping conversations from the past that are stuck in my head, talking about how unworthy I am, how I
Yeah.
don't deserve this, how I can only serve for service, safety. Like I can only serve for safety. I can't serve whether or not I want to. You still have to serve for most part, right? And there was that. And then the crux of how we kept my child alive and who is now about to graduate, has a thriving college and straight A's, folks. And I'm not saying that as a tiger mom. I'm saying that has someone who loved to learn, found that love of learning back because they were homeschooled. And that's one thing they learned, how to learn, the love of learning. And I would say that I can pat myself on the back for that one because
Yeah.
that's key. I hated school personally,
Yeah.
right? And that was the toughest part, being present enough to keep my child safe. We're talking, folks, so if you have any family members who are stuck in the loop of self-harm, because one of the times they can feel safe pain, that's how those, you have to be careful of everything. Sarah, we had the realization that pencil sharpeners have blades in them. A compass for math class has that point that the pencil circles around.
Yeah. Things you wouldn't even think about.
And you have to be present. And so this particular child hid the scars. Everyone's in pain, and some children, when they're going through self-harm and want support, they'll make the scars visible so you can see and you go, okay, they need help. The scarier ones are the ones that hide it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we would have to do checks between the toes and the groin just in case. This child wasn't cutting in those areas, but because now I was aware that they were cutting here and on their thighs, right?
Right.
Those are obvious places, and I had to make sure. And my child, after that first initial 2-week relapse, never relapsed again. It's just through hypervigilance and a lot of therapy and a lot of owning up to like my play and where they were at, and then them having to learn radical self-responsibility. That took a while for them to understand.
When your child felt comfortable to come up and share with you, what was that conversation like?
Oh, so we were driving in transit between Boston and New York. So my kids were homeschooled, and we had moved to the West Coast, and we had gone back to the East Coast for them to hang out with their friends. And it was the drive between visiting my parents in Boston and going down to meet up with them or to the hotel or something. And somehow a conversation started where this child said, I really want to tell you about something and I don't want you to be mad. I'm like, of course not. Well, initially when they said, I want to tell you about something, I thought they were going to thank me for taking them to Boston. This was on Mother's Day in 2017-ish. And instead they were like, well, I've been kind of, you know, cutting myself. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And then they pulled out of their backpack blades, including a box cutter that's stolen from my parents' basement.
Wow.
And evidently they had hid the other 2 blades in their checked luggage. And I didn't know. And I was devastated. And I was like, okay. And I still, you know, I'm an occupational therapist before the kids were born, Sarah. So I went into clinical mode. And then when we went and arrived at the hotel, here's the thing, just because they tell you doesn't mean that they're necessarily ready to start healing, right?
Right.
Because this child was seeking safety by telling me, because in addition to that conversation was admitting they didn't want to be alive anymore. And in the bathroom, not an hour later, we caught this child trying to self-harm with nail cutters in the bathroom, right? And that was scary. And then we got home and we lined up therapy and locked up everything. I didn't know I had 20 pairs of scissors in the house. Like, what in the world was I thinking? So I had to lock up every single sharp object. And here's the thing, and I can give myself grace now because I healed a lot from it. Sarah, I had missed, I don't know how I missed, an entire drawer of brand new knives. I went through the house
Wow.
getting rid of every single sharp object I could find, and I still missed that damn drawer because it was in the back, far back, and I hadn't pulled it out enough. They were brand new, like the ones that have the cardboard still over the blade. My child realized I'd forgotten, got their hands on a brand new fish fillet knife
Oh,
and hid it from us. We didn't know. And then I had a dance event in town. A local, very famous dance instructor came in from out of town. We live in Salt Lake, and I go to this workshop. And what I didn't realize was this child knew that if they suggested that the family members who were home get pizza, everyone would go down for a nap. So this child asked for pizza, waited for twin sibling and father to take a nap, locked themselves up in the bathroom, and just hacked up their arm.
wow.
And I'm walking out of my workshop. I get a call from my husband. We almost had to break the door open in the bathroom.
Oh, God.
And I come home and I took a picture and sent it to my friend who is a school psychiatrist in New York system. And because that child was still underage, not yet 18, this friend of mine said to me, if you were in New York, I would be obligated under law to report you and take your child away from you and admit her into a lockdown unit. That's how bad the cuts were. So I'm standing going, "Ugh, well, we're in Utah, thank goodness." And I'm butterflying the cuts closed and I'm bawling, Sarah. I'm just bawling. And this child just looked at me like they didn't care. They were not there anymore in their bodies.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
was like, how could I have missed it? It got this bad. And it is real talk. I rarely talk about it to this level. And I just wanted to be clear. That was my wake up call, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm I'm so sorry that your whole family has gone through that. And I know that you guys are obviously in a better place. But what was the healing journey? Like that is a real big healing journey from going from suicidal ideation to a spot where you all can talk, continually find ways to grow. Because I know that you're very much on the path of growing a business and always work. This is something with entrepreneurship. I feel everyone is now working towards becoming a better, stronger version of themselves. So, what's it like today?
So today, both of my kids are thriving young adults. The fact that the child who the story is about currently can problem solve how to graduate because there was a hiccup with the last semester's classes, and they figured out how to bypass whatever it was that they did. They on their own initiative asked for an exemption, and we just got an answer today that it's accepted. So most
Oh,
likely they will graduate this coming spring. And it's exciting as all get out because in the so you have to understand, my kids were homeschooled, and it just felt right to continue that pathway. When they were very little, they started doing elite sports, Sarah, and audience members. I had parents that were immigrants who just worried about survivor. There's no such thing as thriver. I mean, stop. I don't think that word even exists other than like plants that they had to grow to feed themselves and sell. Like, there's no such thing as thriving. So for me, in electing to go through in vitro fertilization to have babies, it was a miracle that I took very seriously. I was very loyal to my family. And for me, homeschooling felt at that time that it was the right direction to go in. Now, we homeschooled, we were unschoolers. They were elite athletes. They're junior Olympians, gold and silver medalists at age 11.
wow.
So they pushed for that thing, and I made sure that they achieved because that's what they wanted. No child in their right mind should ever go through junior Olympic training, folks. Like, you break your body. Now they're in their mid 20s and they've really used up the mileage in certain parts of their body, like their hips, gone. Like, they be really careful. Knees, right? They're 25 and 26 respectively. Come on, like, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
and that's the reality. So I parent them the way I wanted to, and you're only going to do the best you can.
Hmm.
And so for us, the rehabilitation was, oh, wow, how do we all stay present? One, to support this child. Now, the sibling has type 1 diabetes, diagnosed at 10. This was one of those life and death situations where, this first child, not the one we were talking about before, but the first one, had type 1 where they could literally die in their sleep. Like, how do you do that? How do you work with that? Right? How do
Right.
you that should be an Oprah show. Anyways, so my point is, you do everything you can, and the goal is, in a situation like this, we all went through therapy. We all went through a come to Jesus moment where it was understanding there were deeper issues. And once my child was willing to, after 2 years of therapy, realize what it was, and I am at liberty to say this, it turned out that this child had been, again, another trigger warning for your audience, they had been sexually assaulted at 3 by a very close family member.
Wow.
And it had been buried. And my getting cancer, their sibling having type 1 diabetes, their father almost dying from a bowel obstruction. The month before I got breast cancer, are moving cross country, broke down whatever residual walls that they had been backup systems. And so they just fell apart. It was just like the last little thing that fell. So that's another thing I want to explain to people. When your child suddenly goes into distress like this level, this is not oh, it happened last month.
Mm-hmm.
This is issues that may or may not be in your control that they were exposed to when they were much, much younger, and it just accumulated.
It's so scary. That kind of, that just such pain. You do everything you can to protect your child, and then you don't even know.
And here's the thing, Sarah. Here's one crazy, crazy story that I've not really spoken to anybody except in this interview because we're doing the real talk interview with you, right?
Yeah.
At 3 years old, and these were my in-laws, so I'm referring to specifically, and I don't care. We need to speak about things like this,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
At 3 years old, my very precious miracles from God said, please don't let them babysit us anymore. And we were like, oh, why? Oh, they don't let us play the games we want. Those words are really sinister now. But back then, we were like, wow, our kids are so articulate. I'm so glad they trusted us. Yep.
Even back then, our language is so important. Currently, we're working a little bit with our daughter on sign language because I feel that knowing not only how to use your voice, but also your hand gestures, so that they can express themselves and we can understand. I think this also comes from me, from my past fitness education. I just feel it's so important to understand how the brain and the body work together. And I'm sure as an occupational therapist for all the years prior, it has come very, it has become extremely helpful in your training as a mom now.
I wish that our country would just pay for every person who ever wants to be a parent to become an occupational therapist.
Mm,
It's essential. You need to understand how to help someone from their motivations and not our own. That's what a OT does. Whether or not I agree with a person's goals, if their goal is to not ever cook again, but they want to order on a menu, that's my job as an OT to break those tasks down into manageable small units for this person to achieve. And my kids, I had mentioned before, they're elite athletes in rhythmic gymnastics. That's a crazy sport to train in. I
mhm.
can't cartwheel, folks, but my kids can do double cartwheels, layovers. Okay, they can do it with an apparatus, the ribbon, the ball, the clubs, the hoop, floor work. I cannot do about 95% of the skills they demonstrated, but I could coach them. And when they were training, they had a coach that had her favorites. They were not my kids. So they would go to practice for 3 hours. Everyone would work out for 2 hours. The last hour was to go through your routines. Her favorite would get a chance to do 5 of the routines. Her least favorites maybe got through 1 or 2, and that was it. So, Sarah, sorry, miracles from God. I take my job very seriously. So then I would rent out that same space, rent the rug out from the coach, and part of their homeschooling was to do the practices they weren't getting
Mm,
practice. So they started in the sport at 6 laughing stocks of the entire Northeast branch because they were considered too old, too fat. They were tiny little babies, too fat, too old. And when they left, they were some of the highest scores for their age category at the Junior Olympics of that year. So they handed off their medals to they loved her, even though, and she loved them in her own survival from abuse way. She's from another country. And
of
they
course,
loved her,
yeah.
right?
Very
They
common.
handed her the silver and gold medal. She got that, and then they left the sport because they were like, we're done. But they had to finish.
Right. They want
They
it.
wanted
They
to. I
want
was
it.
ready to, yeah, I was going to pull them though. No, we got to finish. And you do your best as you can as a parent. What I just want to say that. Like the biggest thing is, thank God they said to us, we don't want them to babysit us. And I said, okay.
Mhm. Now, It's interesting. You and I have talked about parenting styles and things, and growing up, you were attuned to a different parenting style. There's the whole tiger mom approach that you grew up in Taiwan. When did you guys come to the States?
I came to the States when I wasn't yet 6.
Okay.
So the summer before I turned, was it more closer to 5? Because in Boston, the cutoff date for the school year was September 1st, and my birthday was July 26th. So I was
Mm,
always the youngest and the smallest of my class. They didn't think to keep me a year. They should have. They didn't. And the irony is, by the way, just so you know, my father was kept back a year. I just found this out when I was home last. So he was always considered the leader because he was the tallest, the most mature, the most developed. And so he was automatic. And I'm like, why didn't you give me that like privilege? Nope. Yeah, because I was born in 68 in July. That was the year I was entered. So when everyone was already 6, I was only 5. And I didn't turn 6 until the following summer.
mm.
Yeah, I came over to this country when I was almost 6. And it was, if you think back, because I'm now 56 years young. So we're in 2025, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the 70s. And there was no DEI, no even any thought of that. I still remember one of the first schools I went to, I had a little girl. They found her, she was able to speak my dialect a little bit. And then after day 1, she wouldn't translate for me anymore because all the kids were making fun of her. And I think she had finally achieved a level of acceptance, and she
Mm.
was really didn't want to do it. And of course, my thing now as an adult is like, why would they make a little girl work that hard? She's in school for herself,
Right.
right? And then when she wouldn't translate, no one replaced her. So the second day, I was like out of luck. And I remember I had an accident in my seat day 2 because I couldn't tell them I had to go to the bathroom and she wouldn't translate for me. Talk about trauma.
Yeah.
I think I cut you off though. What was your question before? Do you remember?
It's in the lines of your parenting back then versus your parenting.
Yeah.
Your parents, when they parented you, is quite different from how you parent. Even though you homeschooled your kids, you weren't like the typical tiger mom.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I was already an occupational therapist before I decided to be a parent, and I understood development of children. I wasn't kidding when I said every person who wants to become a parent needs to go through at least a child development course, and not the old school child development course, the ones where we truly understand how the brain is developed, that the frontal cortex doesn't even begin to develop until, or yeah, begin to develop, begin to connect until after 7. So all these behaviors we expect children to have, like sharing and understanding how to be kind to someone, that's not fair. It's literally asking a fish to go and sail a sailboat. Like, stop. It's a fish, right? Maybe like a guppy becoming a frog. You might be able to say, hey, guppy, you might sprout legs one day. We're literally asking children to become little adults, which is why we now have this therapeutic name parentification when we expect children to be little adults, and especially if parents expect children to parent them, which is completely unfair, which completely takes a child's level of safety and throws it out the window,
Mm.
right? Babies were born to teach us that they need us to survive, not the other way around. And for me, I never fervorized my children, and no judgment on anyone for that, because sometimes you just need your sleep. I could not, because my childhood was full of me crying, my own tears of my childhood. So anytime my kids cried, all of the children parts of me stuck in the past from my trauma, who cried all the time and was ignored, it would set that off, and I would literally want to stab myself in the head if my children cried.
Mhm.
And because I'd never had my children cry it out, and I just breastfed and we co-slept, that's how it developed, because I wasn't getting any sleep. We co-slept our babies. I have a relationship with my children that very few people can ever achieve, because I did the 5 love languages, Sarah, and I
Mm.
kept all 5 languages full all the time. And that was just key for me. And now that comes with, it's because I'm
Comes with
privileged,
the
right? My
price.
husband made enough money Okay. And I could be home and give them all that. Some people don't have that. And it's not to judge anybody, it's just explain to you and your audience. It was really important to me because I demanded to be a parent. Somehow I was like, got it. You want me child free? I'm not going to do it. And then the joke was on me. I ended up with two, and they're really expensive.
It's true. It's true. Man. Oh, let's kind of talk about post homeschooling, teaching your children, going through the next chapter, because empty nesting's not fun. I'm sure it was not fun, but then you discovered so much that Jenny needed. What was that like?
I'm still in the process of this, Sarah. This is the most opportune interview because I think so. Audience members, lean in for a second, all right? Lean in, because this is really like a gem. I just came to realize I have multiple coaches, and there's been this overlapping theme with this being like 2025, the quarter of the century. It's time for a change, and I realized I still had not learned an important thing. Are you listening, audience? And it was, I still don't put myself first. And I've done all this healing. And I was writing a note today on a reflection about I don't give myself enough restful sleep. And you would think, well, that's all right. Folks, I'm not referring to the sleep where we collapse. I'm not referring to the sleep that we escape with. I'm not referring to the cat naps that we say, oh, I'm deserving of a cat nap. All right. I'm talking about restful sleep has a non-negotiable birthright. And actually, I'm getting emotional because it took us a while to figure out I had sleep apnea, first of all. So even around there, like people that should be a platform I do about like how important sleep is because our brains really need to reset. It's an anti-cancer treatment when you get enough sleep, right? It's an anti-dementia treatment when you get enough sleep. It's an anti-getting sick treatment when we get enough sleep. It's a healing modality when we get enough good sleep. And I've been getting FOMO with all these opportunities coming in and me feeling like, oh, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to miss out. And it's all correlated to my lack of sleep. And then, well, why aren't I sleeping? Well, because this happened and this happened. Every other excuse I could come up with in the world. And it's all because I don't make that a priority for myself. And enough sleep has to come before working out. Have you seen the latest news about even moms who want to lose weight and get back into shape? We don't put sleep at the top of that, and it should be sleep first.
Yep.
And then hydration, and not just guzzling water, like the right kinds of hydration. I was speaking to someone who's a functional medicine person, and she was saying, you can wash out all the good nutrients in your body from drinking too much water. Hello? No one tells me that. I'm guzzling water, warm water, cold water. Well, cold water is bad for the Asian person, right? Water. And it's like, nah. What kind of water do you need? Do you need ones with electrolytes? Because now for me, as a breast cancer survivor, having gone through chemotherapy in menopause, I live in high altitude, Sarah. And people are like, you're not, that's too much. I'm like, not for me. For me, I have to have as much hot water. Like I have one of these thermoses. I'm going to show it to you guys. One of these little things you get it. I need it at my own Amazon store. You plug it in and there's hot water in here. Different temperatures. I have temperatures for drinking 140 and then temperatures for popping my tea. So I drink multiples of these, and I have a bottle of water that is filled. Thank you. My son just brought me by cucumber slices with salt. Thank you.
That's amazing.
I have a bottle of water, not this brand, not that. And inside of it is one packet of sugar-free liquid IV. Drink it down, and then one packet of sugar-free Pedialyte. Don't drink regular Pedialyte if you're allergic to whey, because there's actually whey protein in there, which I didn't know.
Interesting. There's so many ingredients and things these days that I have to like triple check. Yeah.
Exactly. And I can't have whey anymore as part of my discovering what caused me breast cancer. That's for me. Anyways, so one full bottle, if not bigger, of Pedialyte liquid IV, sugar free. And
Mm,
when I do that, okay, TMI moment, I go to the bathroom, which is really important,
yes.
right? And we don't talk about that.
Yeah. I'm big into talking about bowels because I was doing gut health certification for a good couple of years to discover my own trouble. Because Ashkenazi Jews, we are known to have IBS.
My mom has Crohn's now. An
Mm,
80 plus year
that's
old Asian woman in the States. She has Crohn's on top of everything else, you know? And I don't want that. And I'm already taking 5 tablets of magnesium glycinate on top of all this. And then I'm regular. And that's another thing on top of sleep and water. Going poo keeps us from getting sick.
yep, exactly. Something I really want to talk about too is
Hmm.
we have repeating patterns.
Hmm.
And how can someone, let's say they're not getting enough sleep, something not putting yourself first, how can we break those patterns, those old habits?
All right. Besides getting coaching from someone who helps you with your subconscious, that would be me, which you can start off first, right? Because sometimes that is a privilege. You have to have the finances to put towards that. The art of healing yourself through movement is free for everyone, right? My platform is Dance to Heal. What does that mean? In the past, when we've had traumatic events that would cause what's showing up now as loops in our heads or subconsciously in our bodies, those were moments when, under a stress response, we were trapped mentally, physically, emotionally. There is a freeze response to that situation, mentally, physically, emotionally. How do you get out of the freeze? Move. Move as much as you can. And I'm not talking about mindless movement. So I could go into a Zumba class, which is amazing, by the way, and let the teacher lead me through. If I'm not present in my body, I'm prone to getting hurt, pushing myself beyond what I could physically do because I'm so much in the moment of following the teacher. I love not being the leader, okay? I love going to ballroom dancing and let my husband be in charge. He hates it, but I'm like, you lead, I'm done. I have a giddy, stupid face, like smile the whole time because I'm just so happy. I'm speaking of mindful movement, where when you tune into your 5 senses, because when your 5 senses are lit up, that means every part of your brain is lit up.
Mm,
And then you do breath work, which helps to shut down your reacting to fear system. That's your sympathetic nervous system. It engages your parasympathetic nervous system.
mhm.
Those two things plus movement, especially to something you find relaxing and makes you happy. So some people love jazz music. Dance and move to that while you're tuned into your 5 senses and doing breath work. Some people like the sound of water. I don't know why, but they think that's music. Yay, because our bodies are over 90% water. Water vibrates to sound waves. So whatever you associate as music and you move to it, you are already starting your pathway to healing.
Mm.
Now, that is a lifetime thing. So I'm 56, right? And I started this healing journey maybe 10 years ago. Guess what? I have another 40 years to really fully regress. And people go, I want an overnight. You can get a temporary overnight help. Long term, it is a life journey. I'm sorry. Like everyone, you all like, I'm going to be the real talk, bad news. I don't care. I'm a tiger mom about this. Okay, so as long as you've been alive, once you make the decision to grow past where you are now, it is lifelong for you from that point forward. And that's the beauty of it. Because
Yeah.
I have a girlfriend who has a thing like, if it's something about like life, if life is perfect, then you're dead. Right? If you got every problem solved, then you have no reason to go on living.
Exactly. Yes. I love to end on this question. How has stress saved your life?
Mm. So when it's a good stress, it is always life saving. And when I say it's a good stress, that means when I'm exercising a muscle, the only way for me to grow, when I'm exercising a muscle, the only way for me to grow, the only way for me to heal, 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 the only way for me is to move beyond the stress of lifting something that I'm not quite ready for,
Mm.
right? So the stress of moving to this country, am I growing? The stress of being a bicultural child, stress at home versus stress at school. I would have had to go through it even if my parents were the most supportive parents in the world. The stress of getting married. That's stressful. I know it's supposed to be all, no, it's stressful. The stress of becoming a parent. The stress of entrepreneurship and heading out and saying, I'm really worthy of it.
Mm.
The stress of having the privilege of being 56 years young. You know, full-blown menopause after chemo-induced menopause. That's a whole nother topic we've got to talk about another time. I'm telling you, like all about the hoo-ha. Like seriously, the things that people did not tell us about. That's a paid interview. We'll tell you everything, all the tools. Anyways, so my point is the stress of just being alive. I'm grateful for that.
Mm. Jenny, you're incredible. This was great. And thank you for going deep with me. It's not always easy. And this year in 2025, I wanted to ask more tough questions to the people I love when I get to chat with them a little deeper, because life isn't easy, but the stress, like you said, is worth it. Where can people connect with you and how can they work with you?
All right. You can find me on any social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok if it's still around when this interview comes out. And on those formats, just type in Jenny C. Cohen. I purposely did that so people could find me easily. Send me a message and say, oh, I was on Sarah's amazing show and I have this question for you and I will answer you immediately. If you're shy, because some people aren't, and I hold space for you. Go to movetobloom.com, and when you give me your email, so then you get regular messages from me, you'll get access to an entire series of classes that worked on stretching and simple dance to keep you mindful in your body, because that's the first step. Even if you were working with me, that's what we would do before we would go on.
Mm. Thank you, Jenny, for coming on Stress Free Solutions. And everyone, please share your takeaways. You know, I love to hear from you. And we changed it up. It used to be kind to yourself on the self-love journey. Speak well to yourself on the self-love journey. Take care.
Thanks to Dan Lieber at Beckett Brown Music for the intro and outro music. You can keep in touch with me on Instagram at Sarah Elise Coaching. If you're looking to improve your health and wellness, check out my business, livewellenhanceyou.com. While you're there, join the Live Well Enhance You email list and receive exclusive offers for our wellness programs and events. Until next time, take care.